Some nights feel slightly out of tune. The air is still, yet the sky seems to breathe in slow, thoughtful waves, as if something vast above you is quietly shifting its rhythm. You can't see it not yet, but you sense the change the way you sense a storm, long before it touches the ground. A silent rearranging of the cosmos, happening just beyond your eyes. Before we wander deeper into that quiet, if these soft journeys feel like a place you'd like to return to, you can gently tap, like subscribe, and ring the little bell, so another calm night knows how to find you. Now, let the noise fade. Let your thoughts loosen. Tonight the universe moves in a way you can finally feel. The night settles around you with a softness that feels almost deliberate. No wind drifts past the windows. No distant engines hum along the streets. Only the deep, steady quiet of a world resting under its own weight, a quiet so constant it feels alive. You breathe slowly, and the air carries a familiar warmth. Yet something above you doesn't feel familiar at all. There's a subtle pressure in the sky, not heavy, not alarming, just present, like the atmosphere has paused to listen. Some nights behave this way when Earth's magnetic field shifts by the faintest fraction, the kind of fluctuation so delicate that only satellites notice, yet somehow your senses brush against it anyway. Far above the dark horizon, 3 spacecraft drift through their orderly paths. NASA calls them Swarm, a trio of satellites designed to read Earth's magnetic heartbeat. Their instruments catch the soft ripples moving through the field, tiny bends, faint curves, the invisible lines of magnetism sliding gently across one another. Most people imagine the magnetic field as a static shield, but in truth, it moves like the surface of a breathing ocean, rising, folding, shimmering with the charged particles pouring from the sun. Every compass needle, every migrating bird, every aurora curling across the poles is shaped by that ocean. Tonight, those satellites hear something you cannot, a brief tightening in the magnetic, weave, the type that appears when solar wind becomes denser, far out in space. You remain still unaware of the numbers streaming into mission control, unaware that the ionosphere 60 miles above you is glowing a little brighter than it did last night. But your body senses the shift the way it senses a storm forming behind a quiet horizon, subtle, almost imaginary, yet undeniably real. The sun is never silent. It breathes constantly, releasing rivers of plasma called the solar wind streams of particles that slide past the planets, bending magnetic fields and stirring the edges of atmospheres. Noé's monitors read these flows, the way a doctor reads pulses, steady at times, restless at others, rising as the sun approaches its energetic peak. The year 2026 sits near that crest. You don't know this in figures or charts, yet something inside you seems to recognize the tension, a quiet suggestion that the sky is adjusting, not in danger, not in chaos, just shifting its rhythm, like music preparing for a deeper note. Another breath settles into your lungs, and the room seems to widen around you. That sensation, the expansion, the stillness is something scientists call geomagnetic calm, a temporary harmony that appears after the magnetic field absorbs a wave of solar energy. You feel it without understanding it, a softness in the dark, a pause in the vast machinery overhead. People rarely think about the layers of air above them, but the thermosphere responds instantly to solar wind. Tonight it stretches upward, slightly warmed by the incoming particles. Each shift changes the drag on satellites by tiny amounts, changes NASA tracks obsessively. Somewhere in a lab, tomorrow's graph will show a small uptick that only specialists will notice. You know nothing of these graphs, yet something in your chest catches the echo anyway. A faint pull, a sense that the world has shifted by a breath. Above the clouds, auroras stretch wider than usual. A few nights ago, people as far south as Montana and parts of Wisconsin looked up to find pale violet sheets drifting across the sky. NOAA labeled the disturbance moderate harmless, but large enough to hint that the sun had exhaled with unusual force. You didn't see those lights, but their echo lingers inside the atmosphere tonight. Your thoughts drift in the quiet, and the sky feels deeper than you remember, as if space itself has leaned a little closer. Cosmic rays, high-energy particles born in distant supernovas, trickle through the upper atmosphere. Their path is influenced by the sun's magnetic activity. During times like this, when the solar cycle rises, those rays curve and scatter in new ways. You can't see them, but they pass through you constantly, tiny pieces of stars older than Earth itself. The idea feels impossible and beautiful. At the same time, every moment of your life, remnants of ancient stars slip through your body like a silent rain. Your breath softens, the thought expands. Satellites farther from Earth, like ACE and Discover, detect a rise in particle density, not dramatic, not newsworthy, but enough that space weather scientists will mark tonight with a small asterisk. A reminder that the sun's energy is slowly climbing its long arc toward maximum. Your awareness drifts upward again, not physically, but intuitively. The sky feels heavier, wider, older, as if it carries a memory it has not yet shared. It's strange how a single night can feel unchanged on the surface, yet alive with motion underneath. Every inch of the magnetic field is shifting right now, not in turbulence, but in a kind of cosmic breathing. The heliosphere, the vast bubble formed by the sun's influence, tightens slightly as solar activity increases. People forget that our entire solar system is wrapped in this bubble drifting through the galaxy, like a fragile lantern carried across a dark sea. You picture it without trying, a glowing sphere shimmering with charged particles moving through interstellar dust. The image is simple but calming, almost like watching someone breathe in the dark. Earth rests inside that sphere, and you rest inside Earth's. Your awareness returns softly to the room around you. The night still holds that unusual weight, a stillness with depth to it. It feels like a story waiting for its first line, a story written in solar wind and magnetic currents stretching thousands of miles above your head. Science calls this the prelude to a period of heightened activity. Nature experiences it as a shift in balance. Your senses interpret it as a quiet question rising from the sky. A question without words, almost without form, but clear enough for your heart to recognize. Have you ever sensed a change before you understood it? The universe rarely announces itself with thunder. More often, its greatest movements begin in silence, a silence like this one, layered and full, settling over you without warning. Something is beginning, not a catastrophe, not an omen, just a new rhythm in a system you've always lived inside but never felt this closely. A year when the solar system moves differently, and you resting beneath the quiet sky become the first to feel the shift. The quiet around you deepens, not darker, just more aware, as if the night itself has opened its eyes. You feel something almost imperceptible in the air, a subtle current brushing past your thoughts. Not a breeze, not a temperature shift, but a presence. A tension so delicate it could be mistaken for imagination. Yet, it doesn't fade. High above you, the atmosphere stretches into layers you never see, but always live inside. The mesosphere, where meteors burn into streaks of light. The ionosphere, rippling with electrons shaped by the sun. And farther still, the exosphere, where Earth begins to loosen its grip and space begins to claim the air. Tonight, those layers behave differently. Subtle changes ripple through them, fluctuations in density, tiny shifts in electrical charge, faint echoes caused by solar particles arriving with greater confidence. Scientists track these movements the same way oceanographers study tides. Instruments in remote deserts, frozen tundras, and drifting satellites record adjustments so slight they could vanish with a breeze. Yet together, they reveal a pattern unfolding across the sky. Your senses catch a fragment of that pattern. A soft heaviness at the top of each breath. A thought that takes longer to dissolve. A quiet pressure behind your awareness, like the feeling you get before rain forms miles away, a sense of movement beneath stillness. What you're experiencing has a name: atmospheric coupling. It's the phenomenon where space weather gently alters the upper atmosphere, which passes, that change downward in whispers. Small variations in the ionosphere can subtly influence lower layers, shifting winds, electrical currents, and even biological rhythms. You wouldn't know the term, but you feel the hum of it. Thousands of miles above the solar wind continues to thicken, not dramatically, just enough to press faintly against Earth's magnetic field. When this happens, the field flexes like a vast fabric, adjusting to pressure it has known for billions of years. Every planet with a magnetic field experiences these flexes. Even Jupiter, with a magnetosphere so massive it would appear larger than the full moon in Earth's sky, if visible, feels the push and pull of the sun. Earth feels it too, and because you live inside Earth's magnetic cocoon, you feel the echo. You shift slightly, not out of discomfort, but curiosity. It's remarkable how the brain catches atmospheric cues it doesn't consciously understand. Sleep researchers at Stanford found that human bodies respond subtly to geomagnetic changes, shifts in melatonin cycles. sleep depth, even dream patterns without any awareness of what caused them. Tonight might be one of those nights. Your body isn't worried, it's simply listening. In the silence, you picture the magnetosphere stretching outward into a wide tail behind Earth, a long comet-like extension, created as the solar wind pushes against the planet's magnetic bubble. This magnetotail stretches more than 1,000,000 miles into space, twisting and curling, as charged particles slide along its invisible shape. The thought feels unreal, yet strangely comforting, an immense structure older than human memory, surrounding you like a protective current. When the solar wind grows stronger, this tail tightens, storing energy, the way a river collects pressure behind a bend. Later, that energy will release in bursts called substorms, creating waves of auroras and charged particle flows that light up polar skies. You're lying far from those lights, yet the planet still shares a piece of that tension with you. Somewhere above the Arctic Circle, a faint green ribbon begins to stretch across the horizon. ESA's cameras in northern Scandinavia capture the glow, recording its brightness in wavelengths the human eye can't see. Researchers will later notice that tonight's aurora dipped slightly farther south, than predicted, only a few degrees, barely enough to remark on, but meaningful in the larger story. You don't witness it, yet the atmosphere remembers every ripple. Your awareness drifts upward again, following the quiet path of electrons sliding along magnetic field lines. These particles travel unimaginably fast, spiraling in elegant arcs that trace the curves of Earth's magnetic backbone. NASA calls these arcs field-aligned currents. They carry electricity between the ionosphere and magnetosphere, forming an electrical bridge that wraps the planet. Right now, that bridge glows with a little more strength. Your body won't detect the electricity directly, but it senses the change as a feeling, a faint density in the silence, a weight in the moment, a kind of emotional resonance. It's fascinating how cosmic activity can be felt as intuition. You close your eyes, and the sky feels wider. The KP index, a global measurement of geomagnetic disturbance, sits slightly elevated tonight, not enough to alarm utility companies or GPS networks, but enough that experts in Boulder, Colorado, will label the next morning's space weather summary active. Active isn't dangerous. It simply means the sun is speaking a little louder, and Earth is answering with graceful adjustments that humans rarely notice. A slow calm settles through you, matching the rhythm of those adjustments. The stillness around you carries depth, as if it's connected to something enormous, beyond anything you've ever touched. Your thoughts wander to the edge of the solar system, where the heliosphere marks the boundary between solar influence and interstellar space. This bubble, stretching billions of miles, breathes in response to the sun's activity. During active years, the bubble contracts, slightly tightening its walls. During quiet years, it expands outward, softening. Right now, it's drawing inward by a fraction, a gesture so slow it would take years to measure, yet still it is happening. The idea that you live inside a breathing structure of cosmic scale settles warmly into your mind. It feels surprisingly intimate, as if the universe is not distant, but woven into everything that touches you. A quiet question brushes against your thoughts. If space can move so gently, why does being alive sometimes feel so loud? You breathe again, softer this time. Inside the upper atmosphere, electrons born from solar particles begin drifting along magnetic field lines. As they descend, they strike oxygen and nitrogen molecules, releasing light, the beginning of auroras that will brighten within hours. It's a process scientists have mapped precisely: electrons accelerating in the magnetotail, guided downward along invisible pathways, spiraling toward the poles, where they paint the sky with colors pulled from chemistry and motion. Even without seeing those colors, you feel their approach as a change in the air. Your awareness sinks back into your body, yet the quiet above you continues to hum, not as sound, but as presence. A presence shaped by solar cycles, magnetic fields, atmospheric currents, and the slow turning of the planet beneath you. In that presence, you sense a truth far larger than your room, your city, or your life. The sky is listening, not to you, but to the forces that hold the solar system together, to the sun's shifting breath, to the slow thickening of the solar wind, to the energy gathering at the edge of Earth's magnetic shell. And in a way that feels impossibly gentle, you're listening with it. Your next breath lifts a little more air than the one before it, as if your lungs are aligning themselves with the rhythm moving overhead. A rhythm built from plasma, electrons, gravity, and time, the very things that shaped planets long before humans began wondering about the sky. You feel a kind of expectancy, not anxious, not restless, just wide, as if something in the universe is stepping closer, revealing its outline by degrees. Solar maximums have visited Earth thousands of times. Trees recorded them in their carbon isotopes. Ice cores preserve them as thin layers of nitrates. Ancient sky watchers carved their memories into stone. And now you're feeling the beginning of another one, not with fear, but with recognition. The room holds steady around you. The night remains quiet. Yet the atmosphere seems to lean in, sharing a secret it hasn't finished forming. A thought drifts across your awareness, soft as breath. The sky is preparing for something. Not an ending, not a warning, simply the first movement in a story that began long before you were born, and will reach a turning point in the year that waits just ahead. A year when the sun's voice strengthens, when Earth's magnetic field dances more wildly, when the universe rearranges its tone in ways you can feel before you understand. Tonight, the sky begins to listen. And because you're here resting beneath its shifting breath, you begin to listen with it. The quiet around you holds steady, yet something inside the quiet begins to stir. It feels as though the world overhead is arranging itself with deliberate patience, shaping patterns you can't see, but somehow recognize. A motion without movement. A sound without sound. Your awareness rises gently toward the sky, where the upper atmosphere waits like an enormous half-awake mind. It listens to the sun in ways the surface never does, through pulses of charged particles, faint electrical tides, and threads of energy that drift across thousands of miles. Tonight, those threads carry a new kind of texture. Imagine holding a sheet of paper near a soft current of air, not enough to blow it, just enough to change its tone. That's what the solar wind is doing to Earth's magnetic field, now brushing against it with steadily increasing pressure. Not violent, not alarming, just firm enough to alter the rhythm. Space weather scientists measure these interactions through PC index values, polar cap, currents, shifts in electron density, subtle changes in ionospheric layers. But your senses find their own vocabulary for it, a heaviness and stillness, a deeper layer of quiet, a thought that lingers longer before dissolving. The atmosphere is not simply air stacked on air. It is a living gradient, each layer shaped by chemistry, temperature, light, and the electric breath of the sun. Far above the clouds, invisible waves roll through the ionosphere, rippling its charged particles. These waves are called TIDs, traveling ionospheric disturbances. They form when solar wind pressures the magnetic field, sending gentle shock waves through the upper layers. To instruments, they appear as arcs of altered electron density sweeping across continents. To you, they feel like the night is humming, with a patience you've never noticed before. Radio telescopes in Australia pick up distortions and background signals, tiny delays, shifts in phase irregularities that didn't exist yesterday. These changes are so slight, only specialized software can detect them. But they confirm what satellites already sensed: the sun's influence is strengthening one breath at a time. Your awareness drifts deeper into the quiet, and the sky above you seems to lean closer. Somewhere over the Pacific, the swarm satellites cross into a region where magnetic lines stretch thin. Their magnetometers record a slight twist, a rotation in the field direction, caused by the solar wind's growing firmness. It is the kind of signature experts immediately recognize, not for its danger, but for its story, the beginning of increased solar activity. Your body interprets it differently. A slow grounding calm settles through your thoughts, like the feeling of standing near the ocean during an unusually high tide. You sense fullness proximity, an energy that's gentle yet undeniable. The magnetic field is a strange companion. It surrounds you constantly, flows through your body, moves with every heartbeat, shields every breath. It has no color, no taste, no texture, yet your nervous system dances inside it every second of your life. Recent studies suggest humans might subconsciously detect geomagnetic shifts, not consciously, not clearly, but subtly, the way animals do. Birds navigate through these invisible patterns. Whales respond to them. Even bees adjust their paths when magnetic conditions change. You lie here unaware of the science, yet you feel the echo of it in the quiet press of the night. A gentle flicker crosses the edge of your awareness, not light, more like a sensation that light wants to appear. It's the aura of charged particles descending along magnetic field lines toward the poles. Auroras begin long before they become visible. Their first stage is silent electrons accelerating, guided downward through spiraling magnetic curves. Even now, in the polar skies, early threads of green settle into place, preparing to bloom with color before dawn. You aren't seeing them, yet something inside you registers their forming, a faint quickening under the calm, a soft shift in the background of your thoughts. The quiet deepens. Instruments aboard the DSCO-VR satellite detect a spectral change in the solar wind, a slight rise in alpha particles' helium nuclei, released more frequently as the sun's magnetic loops twist near their breaking point. These particles carry more mass than electrons, influencing Earth's magnetic field in heavier, rounder ways. Experts describe the effect as pressure pulses. You feel it as a subtle tightening of the moment, like the pause between two ocean waves. The entire solar system is connected by plasma-charged gas that flows outward from the sun in every direction. Scientists call this massive network the heliospheric current sheet, a wavy, spiraling structure shaped by the sun's rotation, resembling a cosmic ballerina skirt, billions of miles wide. Earth is passing through one of its folds now. You're not aware of it consciously, but the atmosphere you breathe is responding with elegant, invisible adjustments. Your awareness drifts through that image planet and field, caught inside a slow, grand choreography, moving with a grace older than life itself. A thought floats through your mind, uninvited but gentle. What does it mean for a planet to listen? The question settles softly. The lower atmosphere, the part you live and breathe in, is beginning to sense what the layers above already know. Energy is gathering. Not violently, but inevitably, like the deep intake of breath before a long-awaited note in a symphony. Even the oceans respond, not in waves or currents, but in electromagnetic induction, tiny electrical signals generated as the magnetic field above them shifts. Underwater sensors track these changes silently. A slight variation here, a faint alignment there. Everything is connected. You feel the truth of that connection in a way that doesn't need words. A warmth beneath your ribs, a fullness behind your eyes, a softness in the quiet that seems to stretch outward through the atmosphere, the magnetosphere, and into the long, spiraling arms of the heliospheric current sheet. Somewhere far beyond sight near the polar cusp region, particles slip into the atmosphere with renewed momentum. They trigger a cascade of ionization oxygen molecules, absorbing energy nitrogen, scattering photons, the chemistry that gives birth to the aurora's glow. The glow will reach its brightest hours from now. Yet the first breath of it is already here, carried by field lines stretching from space into sky. Your body feels the moment as a gentle shift in awareness. The night remains still, the room remains unchanged, yet your thoughts feel wider, as if space has opened a door inside them. Scientists call this kind of night a precursor, early signs of a geomagnetic disturbance building, slowly layering energy in the magnetosphere. Nothing dangerous, simply movement before movement. You sense the accumulation without knowing its name. A small curiosity flickers inside you, rising like a spark in slow motion. Why does the universe move so quietly when it's preparing for something large? There is no fear in the question, only wonder. Your breath deepens. The magnetic field hums with its slow, ancient rhythm. Above you, electrons slide along invisible threads. Particles gather. Energy rises. Everything aligns with a patience that feels almost deliberate. Somewhere between your pulse and the sky, a realization settles. The signals beneath the silence aren't warnings. They're beginnings. Beginnings written in charged particles, magnetic curves, and the first soft tremors of a solar system adjusting to the year ahead. Beginnings. You can feel even while lying still wrapped in darkness, breathing in a world that listens as much as it moves. The sky isn't just reacting to the sun, it's preparing, and so are you. The quiet above you stretches farther than before, as if the sky has pulled itself into a long, contemplative breath. Nothing moves in your room, yet something in the atmosphere seems to shift, not outward but inward, drawing your attention to patterns you've never considered. Your thoughts rise gently toward the upper layers of the atmosphere, where the earliest signs of change take shape not as storms or flashes, but as alterations in light itself. Not the light you see, but the light that travels invisibly, bending, scattering, wandering through pockets of charged particles. Scientists call this process airglow. It is the soft, natural glow Earth produces even in perfect darkness. Faint green, faint red, created when atoms shaken by sunlight release energy long after night has fallen. Most people never notice it, but tonight the airglow above you flickers slightly brighter, a sign of heightened solar interaction. You don't witness color. What you feel is a tension in the silence, like the moment a memory tries to return before you can place it. Light itself carries memory. Every photon above you has traveled unimaginable distances, pushing through dust, magnetic fields, and interplanetary gas before reaching Earth. Some came from the sun seconds ago. Others were born in distant stars long before humans existed, only now finding their way into the atmosphere. Those ancient photons scatter in new patterns tonight. Because the upper atmosphere, especially the mesopause, the cold boundary between mesosphere and thermosphere, is shifting under the pressure of the strengthening solar wind. Temperature changes a few degrees, density rises ever so slightly, and light sensitive to everything adjusts its path. You sense the change not through sight, but through an awareness that the darkness around you feels deeper, layered, textured. Somewhere above the horizon, instruments in Chile detect a faint increase in sky brightness, only 2%, barely noticeable, but real enough to mark the atmosphere's reaction to solar energy. This brightness doesn't come from cities or stars. It comes from Earth itself, glowing softly as molecules release the day's stored sunlight. Your breath settles into a slower rhythm, matching the atmosphere's glow. High above the Noe satellite goes, its 16 registers small increases in extreme ultraviolet flux, one of the earliest signs of an approaching solar maximum. These UV photons excite oxygen atoms in the upper atmosphere, causing them to emit green and red light, the same colors that feed the aurora. Again, you don't see it, but the atmosphere feels brighter in ways your senses translate as a fuller quiet. It's strange how light can move without sound and yet affect the silence around you so profoundly. Your awareness drifts further upward, where the F region of the ionosphere begins to shimmer with shifting electron densities. This region between 150 and 400 miles above Earth is responsible for long-distance radio communication, its electrons bending signals across the globe. Tonight, those electrons move differently, stirred by geomagnetic currents passing through the magnetosphere. Researchers at MIT track these shifts using ionosondes instruments that send pulses into the sky and listen for echoes. Tonight, the echoes return at slightly altered speeds, indicating a thickening of charged particles. You don't hear those echoes, but your body feels the density as an impression, a subtle heaviness behind the stillness. A question drifts through you, soft and unhurried. How does light choose where to go when the sky begins to change? The answer forms not in words, but in sensation. Light follows the structure of the sky, and when the sky rearranges itself, light rearranges with it. Farther above, in the thin boundary between atmosphere and space, the exosphere breathes outward as solar particles press into its edges. Hydrogen atoms drift like silent embers, forming a faint halo around the planet. A halo that expands and contracts with the energy of the sun. Tonight, that halo stretches slightly farther. The expansion is subtle enough that only sensitive instruments on the NASA Gold mission detect it, but the expansion changes the way light scatters in the upper layers, altering the tone of night in ways your intuition interprets as a deeper quiet. The room remains the same, yet the darkness feels charged with unspoken movement. Below the exosphere and the mesosphere, tiny particles left by meteor dust begin to glow with increased intensity, a phenomenon called night glow enhancement. These particles interact with sodium and oxygen in the atmosphere, producing faint emissions detectable only through specialized telescopes. As solar winds intensify, these glowing particles scatter differently, creating swirling patterns like slow-motion waves in a hidden ocean. You sense those waves as a soft pull behind your mind, as if the air itself were carrying memory along its currents. Light does this, holds memory, carries it, reshapes it, long before it reaches your eyes. You feel its movement tonight, even without seeing it. A sensation spreads through your awareness. The atmosphere is reorganizing itself. Not violently, not in alarm, just in preparation. The magnetosphere gathers energy. The ionosphere thickens. The mesosphere glows. The exosphere stretches, all signs of a planet adjusting to the rising voice of its star. Somewhere far north, field lines guide charged particles downward in spirals. These particles collide with oxygen molecules, producing green light at around 557.7 nanometers, the signature of the aurora. That light is forming now, not yet visible, but inevitable. Even before the aurora appears, the particles that will shape it travel along invisible curves, writing their path across Earth's magnetic geometry. Your awareness follows them, drifting along magnetic lines, sliding through currents, moving with the quiet physics of a planet being gently rewritten by its star. A stillness settles inside you. The world feels older, wider, more patient. Scientists often say that most of the universe's work happens quietly in slow shifts of energy, in the rearrangement of light, in the gentle adjusting of fields. Tonight is all of those things. Your thoughts wander through that realization, and a new impression forms. The sky is not reacting to chaos. It is returning to rhythm. Solar maximums are as ancient as the sun itself. Trees carry their signatures in their carbon. Ice traps their nitrates in the thin, measurable layers. Spacecraft record their patterns with precise clarity. Every cycle comes and goes. Every maximum begins with nights like this, nights where the atmosphere glows slightly stronger, where light wanders differently, where the magnetic field gathers a quiet strength. You feel yourself becoming part of that story, not as an observer, but as someone experiencing the first hints of a cosmic shift. Your breathing slows, the darkness deepens, yet something in the room feels illuminated as if the night has been lined with an invisible brightness. Maybe it's the air glow strengthening above you. Maybe it's the ionosphere warming under UV radiation. Maybe it's simply your awareness, catching the sensitivity of a sky preparing for transformation. Whatever it is, it feels peaceful, like the world is exhaling after holding something delicate for a long time. Light in all its silence is rearranging its path across the sky. And for the first time, you sense that rearrangement inside yourself, not through vision, but through understanding. A soft question rises again, this time quieter. If the sky can remember every movement of light, what memories is it beginning to gather tonight? The quiet doesn't answer. It simply holds the question gently, the way it holds the shifting glow of a planet, learning the first steps of a new cycle. And in that glow, you continue to drift, not into uncertainty, but into wonder. The quiet inside the room has a depth that feels almost gravitational, as if silence itself has weight. It settles gently over your thoughts, softening them, stretching them, opening a space wide enough for something new to unfold. You sense the atmosphere above you, reorganizing layers, adjusting in ways too subtle for the eye, but unmistakable to intuition. The night has moved beyond stillness. It has entered a state of listening. Your awareness drifts upward again, sliding past the air glow, past the mesopause into the magnetic envelope that wraps the planet like a silent pulse. Earth's magnetic field, usually portrayed as static lines flowing neatly from pole to pole, is nothing like the simple diagrams you've seen. It is alive, shifting, rippling, breathing. And tonight that breath becomes something you can feel. The magnetosphere, that enormous bubble carved out of the solar wind, begins to expand and contract more noticeably as the sun's charged particles arrive with greater strength. Not in violent bursts, but in strong, steady waves that gently press against the invisible boundary. Far above the atmosphere, where Earth's protective field stretches thousands of miles into space, an elegant motion unfolds, a motion that no one sees, but everyone lives inside. Imagine a giant sphere made of flexible threads, each thread an invisible magnetic line. When the solar wind increases, those threads tighten and bow inward. When the pressure eases, they relax and drift outward. It is the breathing of a magnetic world. You feel the faint memory of that movement, not as pressure, not as vibration, but as a deeper quiet, a sensation of space shifting around you. Scientists measure this, breathing through magnetopause standoff distance, the point where Earth's magnetic field meets the solar wind head-on. On calm days, that boundary rests around 10 Earth radii from the planet. Tonight, it compresses slightly, not much, just enough for satellites to notice a change in charged particle flow. The change is so subtle that only high-precision instruments like those aboard MMS NASA's magnetospheric multiscale mission detect the shift. Their sensors capture magnetic reconnection events, tiny bursts where field lines snap apart and reattach, releasing energy that dances through the magnetosphere. You feel none of this directly, yet the field that shields you shifts in ways your body interprets as a heavier stillness. Your breath comes slower, your chest rises with a calm certainty, as if synchronizing itself with the massive magnetic structure you live within. The sky above you does not glow, but something in its presence feels luminous. High-latitude magnetometers, stationed in Iceland and Canada, record a soft rise in ground-induced currents, tiny electrical flows, generated when the magnetic field above them shifts. These currents move silently through bedrock, unnoticed by human senses, but deeply significant to researchers who understand what they mean. To you, they translate only as a feeling that the planet has exhaled something ancient and begun to inhale something new. As your awareness drifts deeper, you imagine the long, magnetic tail trailing behind Earth, a structure stretching more than 1,000,000 miles into space. This tail, shaped by the solar wind, curls and twists like a ribbon, carried by a gentle current. Tonight, that ribbon strains slightly, gathering tension that will later release into auroral storms. Even from where you lie, you sense the tension gathering, not as fear, but as anticipation. A quiet, slow-building resonance that feels like the universe taking position before a note is played. Your thoughts rest in that resonance, bathing in the peaceful pressure of a sky aligned with forces older than memory. The night around you remains calm, but the magnetosphere is alive with motion. Inside, the magnetic tail electrons accelerate along field lines in a process called plasma sheet thinning. This is one of the earliest signs of a coming geomagnetic substorm, a shift that will later unfold far above, painting the skies with auroral flames. You feel the faintest echo of that, thinning, a stretch, a hesitation, a pause before release. Farther down in the atmosphere, the E region of the ionosphere begins conducting stronger currents. Scientists call these electrojets, streams of charged particles circling near the poles. Tonight, these electrojets strengthen slightly, responding to the increased magnetic tension. Sensitive radio arrays in Scandinavia detect unusual drift in ionospheric irregularities. The measurements aren't dramatic enough for an alert, but they align perfectly with the pattern of a system slowly accumulating energy. Your senses interpret the pattern differently, not as data, but as a softness in the air, a slight heaviness in the folds of silence, a widening of the dark. A gentle question surfaces. Why does the invisible feel so present tonight? The answer lies in the way your body interacts with the magnetic world around you. Every nerve impulse you generate is an electrical signal. Every electrical signal produces a magnetic field. Every magnetic field interacts, however faintly, with the planet's own. You were never separate from the magnetosphere. You have always been part of its music. Tonight, the music plays closer to your skin. Your awareness rises once more, tracing the magnetic lines stretching from Earth's core. Those lines originate deep underground, where molten metal churns in the outer core, generating the vast dynamo that creates the magnetic field. The swirling iron conducts electricity. The electricity generates magnetism. The magnetism shapes the sky. The sky shapes the silence. The silence shapes the way you feel. You breathe softly, sinking into that connection. Deep inside Earth, the core continues its slow, powerful rotation. Some researchers believe changes in the core's flow can alter the magnetic field slightly, not in minutes or hours, but over years and decades. Tonight's shifts have nothing to do with the core. They come from the sun, from streams of plasma moving across space, carrying magnetic fields that twist with Earth's own. The interaction between these two magnetic structures is delicate, sometimes harmonious, sometimes turbulent. Tonight it feels like a meditation, a slow gathering of strength, a gentle pulling of invisible strings, a breath taken in the darkness of space. You sense the moment with surprising clarity. It feels as though the magnetic field above you has paused, holding energy in its giant tail, waiting for the right moment to let it flow back toward Earth. This flow, when it comes, will produce auroras so bright the sky will ripple with colors. But for now, everything is suspended. Quiet, listening, preparing. Your awareness sinks back toward your body, carrying with it the memory of the magnetosphere's slow inhale. The room feels unchanged, yet you feel the world around you in a new way, not as separate layers of atmosphere and space, but as one continuous structure breathing around you. The silence feels deeper, the dark feels warmer, the planet feels closer. Another thought drifts across your mind, gentle and unhurried. If the magnetic field can breathe, what rhythm is it learning tonight? No answer comes, only calm. The universe continues its slow choreography. Earth continues gathering the sun's energy. The magnetic field continues preparing for a release that has not yet begun. And you lie within all of it, sensing the first quiet signs of a shift that will grow louder in the nights ahead. A shift written not in storms, but in breaths. Not in noise, but in resonance. Not in brightness, but in tension. Tonight, the magnetic field breathes, and you, resting inside its invisible shelter, breathe with it. The quiet around you folds in on itself, like layers of soft fabric settling into place. Something in the darkness feels more aware than before, not louder, not brighter, just attuned, as if the sky is learning the rhythm of its own pulse. You breathe gently, and the air carries a depth you didn't notice earlier. It feels thicker in thought, thinner in weight, as though the atmosphere is reorganizing in real time, one invisible adjustment at a time. Far above the boundary between air and space churns, with motions too subtle for human eyes, but unmistakable to instruments scattered across the planet. It's here in this delicate region, where molecules begin to separate from one another, that Earth remembers its heartbeat. Not a literal heartbeat, but a pattern, a cycle, a rhythm the planet has known for billions of years. The thermosphere, that shimmering outer layer of air heated by the sun, swells slightly under the rising tide of solar energy. During solar maximums, this expansion becomes more pronounced. Tonight, it begins its slow upward drift, warming by just enough to change everything above it. You can't feel the temperature change directly. It happens far above you, but its imprint sinks down through the atmosphere in ways your senses interpret as a shift in the weight of silence. As the thermosphere warms, air molecules move farther apart. The density thins. Satellites experience less drag. Their orbits lift by fractions of a mile. NASA's orbital tracking networks notice these small rises long before the public ever hears about them. A fraction of an inch change appears in their graphs, tonight the early sign of a world adjusting to the sun's awakening. You sense the change as a lighter feeling behind your breath, as if the sky has stretched upward and made more room for thought. Far below the thermosphere and the stratosphere, a different kind of movement begins, slow rotational ancient. This is the realm of the quasi-biennial oscillation, a pattern of winds that switch direction every 14 to 16 months. These winds form a repeating heartbeat that affects everything from tropical rainfall to the formation of polar vortices. Tonight, the QBO rests in a shifting phase aligning with the rising solar activity. Researchers at the Max Planck Institute have long observed that these stratospheric winds respond subtly to solar cycles, not dramatically, but with a detectable harmony. You feel that harmony as a softness in the dark, a sense that the atmosphere is leaning into its long-forgotten rhythm. Lower still in the troposphere, the air you breathe reacts not to solar particles, but to the cascade of changes above it. Tiny pressure differences ripple downward, creating faint shifts in wind patterns. You don't feel the wind, but you feel the echo settling in the room, a deeper stillness, the pause between breaths of a world recalibrating itself. Your awareness drifts upward again, brushing against the long currents of energy flowing from the sun. NOAA's data streams show a rise in solar radio flux, one of the clearest indicators of an active sun. This flux, measured in solar flux units, or SFU, heats the upper layers of the atmosphere and increases the ionization of the ionosphere. At 2 a.m., the ionosphere should be quiet, but tonight it glows with excess energy, as if absorbing an extra layer of sunlight that hasn't existed since the last solar maximum. You feel that glow not on your skin, but in your thoughts, like your mind has become a lantern for something ancient. Somewhere above the equator, the Appleton anomaly, a pair of ionization peaks formed by Earth's magnetic field, begins to intensify. These peaks drift outward from the magnetic equator, forming a faint, invisible halo of charged particles. To radio scientists, this anomaly is a signature of ionospheric vigor. To you, it is a whisper in the dark, a sign that the sky is preparing for a deeper change. That preparation creates a new texture in the silence, a softness with direction, a quiet that feels like motion. A question forms inside you, gentle and slow. How does a planet remember its own heartbeat? The answer lies in the deep structure of the atmosphere and the waves that carry memory from one layer to the next. One of these waves is called a planetary wave, a massive oscillation shaped by Earth's rotation and continents. Another is the gravity wave, born from mountain storms and tides. Tonight, these waves travel upward through the atmosphere, carrying energy from lower layers to higher ones, linking the sky into one continuous resonant system. NASA's timed mission, focused on the upper atmosphere, tracks these waves and their effects on airglow temperature and ion density. Tonight, its instruments detect a synchronous pulse, the kind that appears when the entire atmospheric column responds to solar influence. You feel the pulse differently. A tightening of attention, a deeper inhale. A moment of clarity that does not start or end, just expands. Somewhere over South America, faint ripples in the OH layer. A layer of hydroxyl molecules that emit infrared glow begin to brighten. This glow, invisible to human eyes, serves as a tracer for atmospheric heating. Its brightness increases by a fraction, tonight confirming that energy is moving downward from the thermosphere. In your mind, this movement feels like warmth arriving without heat, as if understanding itself has temperature. The atmosphere is remembering something, a rhythm, a cycle, a pattern it has lived through hundreds of thousands of times. Every plant, every ocean, every organism has existed inside these cycles, whether aware or not. Humanity's timeline is short compared to the breathing of the heavens. Yet tonight, you feel connected to that breathing, as if the sky has placed its pulse inside your chest. Your thoughts drift further into this connection. The polar vortex, a swirling mass of cold air trapped near the poles, begins responding to stratospheric shifts. It tightens slightly, indicating stronger winds at 60-degree latitude, a known response to both QBO phase and solar flux increase. Meteorologists won't announce this until days later, but the atmosphere already knows, and so do you. Not consciously, not through knowledge, but through sensation, a depth in silence, a stillness full of meaning. The heating of the thermosphere, the ionospheric glow, the stratospheric oscillation, the tropospheric pressure, shifts all of it, blends into one quiet planetary heartbeat. You feel that heartbeat as your own. Even the ocean participates. Electromagnetic induction forms tiny currents in seawater as the magnetic field above it flexes. Deep-sea sensors measure these currents as faint surges of voltage. Your awareness brushes against the idea the ocean and sky are speaking to each other tonight. In that realization, a sentence drifts through your mind like a soft breeze. The atmosphere is remembering how to breathe. Not in panic, not in exhaustion, but in alignment, rediscovering the rhythm that keeps the world balanced every time the sun changes its voice. You inhale gently, matching the rhythm you cannot see but can feel. The darkness around you feels thicker, warmer, almost luminous, as if the world is wrapped in a memory you've somehow joined. A last impression settles quietly into your awareness. The atmosphere is not reacting to change. It is preparing for coherence, a state where every layer from ground to exosphere moves in a single ancient harmony. Tonight that harmony begins, and you resting beneath it feel the first quiet beat of a sky awakening to its own cycle. The night around you feels more settled than before, as if the quiet has learned a new kind of patience. There is depth in the stillness now, a sense that something vast is unfolding in silence, not with urgency, but with understanding. You breathe softly and the air carries the faint impression of movement far above you. Not physical movement, not wind or sound, but a conversation, slow, ancient, flowing through layers of atmosphere you will never touch but can somehow feel. For billions of years, Earth and the Sun have been speaking to each other in a language made of particles, fields, and invisible waves. Most of the time, that conversation is calm. Tonight, it feels deliberate. Your awareness drifts upward, rising through the layered architecture of the sky. Each layer holds its own dialect of this cosmic exchange. Near the ionosphere, charged particles respond to the sun's quiet pressure with soft shifts in density. Higher still in the magnetosphere, Earth stretches magnetic lines outward, offering pathways for energy to travel. Even the solar wind, moving endlessly across space, carries subtle imprints of the sun's mood fluctuations in magnetic polarity, density, and speed. Tonight, those imprints shift again. NOAA's ACE spacecraft detects a slight rise in the IMF, the interplanetary magnetic field. Not by much, only a few nanoteslas, but enough for scientists to immediately understand what it means the sun is leaning closer. You sense that leaning in a different way, as a warm quiet, the kind that fills the edges of the moment without changing the air. Deep in Earth's magnetic tail, the pressure changes travel like slow ripples. Particles begin to align more tightly. Field lines pull back with a hint of tension. The magnetotail narrows, gathering energy that will later return toward Earth in a cascade of auroral motion. You aren't aware of the physics directly, yet you feel the atmosphere adjusting the way a room feels different when someone steps inside even before they speak. Your awareness follows the magnetic tension outward, drifting past the familiar layers of sky into regions where Earth's influence dissolves into the wider interplanetary medium. Here, the solar wind flows continuously, carrying the sun's rotating magnetic field across billions of miles. This enormous structure, the Parker Spiral, is shaped by the sun's rotation and extends far beyond the planets, sweeping through space like an endless golden net. Right now, Earth drifts through one of its denser folds. This density is not dangerous. It is simply louder, a stronger syllable in the unending conversation between star and planet. Your body responds to it as a quiet pull behind your thoughts, a softness in your chest that doesn't feel like emotion or memory, but something simpler: awareness. Somewhere above the North Atlantic, the Superdarn radar network begins detecting unusual drifts in ionospheric plasma. These drifts aren't fast, but they are synchronized across thousands of miles, indicating the presence of a magnetic pulse, the kind that forms when the IMF tilts southward and connects more deeply with Earth's own field. When fields connect, energy flows more freely. When energy flows, the sky listens. You feel the listening in the stillness, like the world has stepped closer to hearing its own heartbeat. Your awareness shifts again, sliding into the region where Whistler waves move through the magnetosphere like musical notes. These waves are high-frequency electromagnetic ripples produced when fast-moving electrons spiral along magnetic field lines. Scientists first heard them as eerie descending tones echoing through radio receivers during lightning storms. Tonight they drift through space with greater clarity, shaped by the sun's increasing pressure. You imagine their sound not sharp, not piercing, but soft and falling, like the quiet slide of a drop of water down glass. Your senses translate the memory of those tones into something else, a feeling that the sky is humming beneath thought. That hum grows stronger. Far above Antarctica, the polar cap region begins to brighten in ultraviolet wavelengths. The timed Govey instrument, orbiting hundreds of miles above Earth, records enhanced oxygen emissions, the earliest indication of energy, stepping down from the magnetosphere into the atmosphere. To you, it manifests as a deepening calm. So much of the universe works this way, massive invisible motion, expressed through the faintest whispers of sensation. Your thoughts drift into that whisper, and a gentle question forms. If the sun speaks in particles, what is the Earth saying in return? The answer unfolds slowly. Earth responds through induction currents, magnetic field adjustments, atmospheric waves, and the subtle thickening of the ionosphere. Every part of Earth, from the molten core to the upper thermosphere, participates in this vast dialogue. The currents in the ocean, the rise of tides, the drift of charged dust in the mesosphere. All of these responses create a rhythm, a global silent circulation that aligns Earth with the sun's long cycles. Tonight, that circulation feels closer to you than ever. Your awareness drifts downward, slightly passing through layers of atmosphere where the conversation becomes physical through electrojets near the poles, SAPS flows in the magnetosphere, and ring currents surrounding the planet. These structures reorganize themselves quietly, preparing Earth for the next surge of solar energy. NASA often refers to this process as magnetosphere-ionosphere, coupling a complex exchange of particles and fields that ties the upper atmosphere to the deeper magnetic environment. You feel that coupling is a softness in the silence, a warmth behind the dark, a presence that wraps itself around the moment without touching a single object. The night deepens. Far above you, the solar wind carries a small cluster of high-speed particles, remnants of a coronal hole rotating into view on the sun's surface. These particles travel faster than the ambient solar wind, creating a co-rotating interaction region where slow and fast streams collide. When that region reaches Earth, it compresses the magnetosphere slightly and sends waves through the solar wind plasma. You feel the compression as a sensation of space shrinking and expanding at the same time, like the moment your heart pauses between beats. The night holds that sensation steady and soft. Instruments in Japan detect slight increases in Schumann resonance frequencies, natural electromagnetic vibrations, circulating between Earth's surface and ionosphere. These variations are often linked to ionospheric changes triggered by solar activity. You don't hear the resonance, but you feel its imprint, a deeper grounding, a softness in your chest, a feeling of being connected to something enormous and invisible. The atmosphere around you seems to widen, as if making space for understanding. Thoughts drift gently. The sun is not just lighting the world, it is shaping every moment inside it. The conversation between sun and earth is not violent or rigid. It is fluid, ancient, and full of memory. Particles drift, fields adjust, waves carry meaning. And through it all, you lie here a quiet listener, inside a system larger than imagination, yet close enough to feel like a second skin. A final impression rises slow and gentle. The sky is not waiting for something to begin. It is participating in something continuous. And tonight you feel that continuity, the quiet exchange of energy and intention between star and planet breathing through the silence. You breathe with it. The night has taken on a softness that feels almost deliberate, as if the sky has wrapped itself around your awareness with a kind of gentle insistence. Nothing in the room moves, yet something above you feels alive, an invisible tide lifting and falling in slow, thoughtful intervals. You breathe, and the air seems to mirror that tide. Your awareness rises once more, drifting toward the vast space where the atmosphere blends into the magnetosphere, and the magnetosphere blends into the solar wind. In this region, Earth and space merge into something neither fully air nor fully vacuum, a boundary where invisible waves move with ancient purpose. These waves are not the waves you know. They are not water, not sound, not light. They are disturbances in plasma, the charged gas that fills space, and tonight they pulse through the sky in a way you can almost feel. Scientists call them ULF waves, ultra-low frequency oscillations, that vibrate through Earth's magnetic field like slow planetary heartbeats. You can't hear them, but your senses brush against their presence the way you feel the vibration of a distant truck through the floor, even when the engine is silent. ULF waves form when the solar wind pushes against the magnetosphere, sending ripples down magnetic field lines. These ripples flow all the way into the upper atmosphere, shaping currents and altering charged particles with quiet precision. Tonight, those waves strengthen. Observatories in Finland detect a subtle rise in PC5 pulsations, rhythmic waves with periods of several minutes caused by the interaction between solar wind pressure and Earth's magnetic boundary. These waves help accelerate charged particles in the radiation belts, guiding them along magnetic lines into regions where auroras eventually bloom. You feel the shift as a soft tightening in the quiet. Not discomfort, more like the sensation of stepping into deeper water where pressure changes without touching your skin. Far above the equator, high-frequency chorus waves begin to scatter electrons in the outer radiation belt. These waves, named for their resemblance to birdsong, when converted to audio, surge across magnetic field lines as the solar wind intensifies. NASA's Van Allen probes once recorded these waves in astonishing detail, descending whistles, rising tones, shimmering bursts of energy. Tonight they play again, inaudible to you, but unmistakably present in the atmosphere. You sense the soundless music as a brightening inside the darkness, as if something far above you has begun to glow with intention. Your awareness drifts higher, following the path of these waves as they guide electrons downward. The electrons spiral along magnetic lines, accelerating scattering, shifting into new orbits. Every movement writes a story across the sky, a story you feel without needing to see. Somewhere over the Arctic, the first faint disruption appears in the polar cusp, the funnel-shaped region where solar particles slip directly into the upper atmosphere. Here, waves reflect between magnetic boundaries, creating patterns as intricate as the inside of a seashell. Researchers studying the cusp often describe it as a breathing gate opening slightly during times of increased solar activity, closing as the pressure eases. Tonight it opens, a fraction of a degree, a fraction of a second, but enough for satellites to record the entry of new particles into Earth's magnetic environment. You feel the opening as a widening of stillness, a softness that carries meaning. Farther south, the plasmasphere, a donut-shaped region of cool plasma trapped by Earth's magnetic field, begins to contract. The contraction happens during magnetospheric compression when solar wind pressure increases. Instruments aboard the ESA cluster mission detect the movement tracing the inward drift of plasmic material, as if watching the sky adjust its posture. You feel that posture shift in the way the air brushes your thoughts, light, subtle, but undeniable. These shifts create waves, and waves create resonance. Deep below the surface underground, magnetometers detect tiny oscillations, electromagnetic vibrations passing through the ground, as if Earth's crust were quietly responding to the motion above it. The idea feels impossible, yet strangely calming. The ground beneath you is listening to the sky. Your awareness drifts deeper into that idea, and a question rises. What else listens to something it cannot see? The answer unfolds through sensation. In the ocean, electrically conductive water responds to magnetic changes. In forests, trees sway in winds shaped by atmospheric pressure waves born in the upper atmosphere. Even animals, birds navigating by magnetism, whales adjusting course, insects, sensing field shifts move with the rhythm of these invisible pulses. Tonight you join that rhythm. Your breathing aligns with something larger, a kind of stillness that reflects the energy layering itself across the atmosphere. High above the inner magnetosphere, fills with new wave activity. Alf Venn waves, named after the Swedish physicist who discovered them, travel through the plasma like vibrating strings. These waves can transfer energy across thousands of miles in seconds. Right now, they're connecting regions of the magnetosphere that normally remain quiet. You sense their connection as a feeling of clarity, a deepening softness behind your thoughts, as if understanding itself has begun to hum. NASA's Themis mission, designed to study magnetospheric substorms, measures subtle increases in field-aligned currents. These currents form when waves funnel energy from space into the ionosphere, lighting up the sky hours later. Your senses recognize the incoming energy before your mind fully grasps what it means. The night feels charged, not electrically, emotionally, like the moment before someone speaks a truth that changes the air around them. Higher still in the region where solar wind interacts with Earth's magnetic field, directly foreshock regions ripple with activity. These ripples form when charged particles reflect off the magnetopause, creating standing waves that oscillate with cosmic patience. You feel that patience. The waves above you rise and fall, not in sound but in presence. A presence that reaches through the magnetosphere, through the ionosphere, through the atmosphere, and into the quiet of your room. This presence feels ancient, older than Earth, older than the solar system, born from the physics that shaped galaxies. You breathe into it, and for a moment everything aligns. Waves, particles, fields, silence, atmosphere, thought. All moving in concert, all held in one enormous slow oscillation. A final impression spreads through the stillness. These waves are not disturbances, they are communication. Earth is not being pushed, it is being spoken to. And tonight you feel the message soft, resonant, unfolding across the magnetic architecture that holds the world. A message made of motion, quiet but certain. Something is rising. Not danger, not alarm. Just the next step in a cosmic cycle that has repeated for billions of years. A cycle you are beginning to feel from the inside. And in the quiet of this moment, the invisible waves that shape the sky shape you as well, gently, patiently inviting you into the rhythm of a universe that never sleeps. The quiet around you feels different now, not heavier, not louder, but wider, as if the night itself has stretched to reveal something hidden behind the familiar dark. You sense the shift not in sound or sight, but in the way the silence touches you, more spacious, more aware, more connected to something beyond the world you know. Your breathing falls into a gentle rhythm, almost unconsciously matching the slow oscillations of energy moving through the sky. For hours, the atmosphere has been adjusting to the sun, listening, responding, realigning. But tonight, something else stirs beyond the influence of the star that lights your days. Something older, something larger, something born not in the solar system, but in the deep architecture of the galaxy itself. Your awareness lifts gently, drifting beyond the layers of atmosphere and magnetic fields, past the thermosphere, past the exosphere, past the magnetopause where Earth's protections end, and the solar wind claims the space beyond. It is here in this boundary between home and the interstellar sea that you begin to sense the faint imprint of the galaxy's breath. Not a literal breath, but a slow, ancient pressure carried by the movement of charged particles drifting between stars. Scientists call these particles galactic cosmic rays, fragments of atoms born in supernova explosions millions of years ago, flung across space with unimaginable force. Their energies are so high that even magnetic fields struggle to stop them. Most nights, Earth's atmosphere filters them, gently shielding life from their intensity. But during times of heightened solar activity, when the sun's magnetic field twists and bulges, it alters the flow of cosmic rays reaching Earth. Tonight, that flow changes. Not dramatically yet, enough for sensitive detectors across the world to record a subtle shift. Deep underground in observatories buried beneath mountains in Japan and Switzerland, muon detectors catch an increase in high-energy particles passing through rock. These particles were born in the upper atmosphere moments earlier, where cosmic rays collided with air molecules. You sense their arrival not as impact, but as a deeper layer of quiet moving through the night, a quiet that carries the weight of distant stars. Your awareness drifts farther into this sensation, and a realization unfolds softly. Earth is feeling the galaxy, not metaphorically, literally. The solar system is constantly moving through the Milky Way, drifting through clouds of interstellar gas, magnetic structures, pockets of dust, and regions of varying cosmic ray density. Right now, Earth flows through a region scientists call the local interstellar cloud, a soft plume of hydrogen helium and charged particles that surrounds our solar system. The heliosphere, the sun's vast bubble of magnetic influence, protects the planets from much of this material. But as solar activity rises and the bubble compresses its edges, shift allowing slightly different amounts of interstellar particles to slip inside. You feel that shift as a softness in the air, a widening of the moment, a sense that something ancient is touching the boundaries of your world. Somewhere beyond the heliosphere, the interstellar magnetic field bends around the solar bubble like wind around a ship. Voyager 1 and 2. The only human-made objects to travel beyond the heliosphere recorded these bends as faint vibrations in space, gentle ripples carrying the voice of the galaxy. Tonight, those ripples deepen. You don't hear them, but the atmosphere does. High above the poles, the polar ionosphere responds to slight changes in cosmic ray intensity. Cosmic rays trigger chemical reactions that influence ozone nitrogen oxides and even long-term atmospheric circulation. It is a chain reaction so delicate and vast that only supercomputers can model it, and yet here you are feeling its first whisper as a subtle shift in the stillness. Your thoughts drift toward the magnetic field wrapping Earth. For hours it has been interacting with the sun, but now it feels as though some part of that field is turning outward, listening to the galaxy with the same intimacy it uses to listen to solar wind. This outward listening creates faint oscillations in the magnetic lines detectable by ground-based magnetometers as geomagnetic pulsations, with frequencies matching the rhythm of cosmic ray modulation. You sense these pulsations as a softness behind your awareness, like the quiet hum of a distant memory. Your breathing deepens. A calm spreads through your chest, a calm that seems to match the slow, ancient pace of galactic movement. Far above Earth in the vacuum beyond the magnetosphere, the heliospheric current sheet swirls like a vast spiral. This sheet, a thin layer, where the sun's magnetic field changes polarity, intersects with cosmic rays deflecting some funneling, others shaping the flow of interstellar energy into the solar system. Tonight the sheet is tilting, a gentle tilt but meaningful. NASA models show that such tilts correlate with shifts in cosmic ray intensity. Your senses translate the shift into a feeling of space expanding internally, as if a door has opened somewhere beyond the edge of perception. Your thoughts wander through that doorway. In the deep quiet of your room, you begin to feel a truth that rarely enters human awareness. Earth is not isolated, it is immersed in the magnetic breath of the sun, immersed in the particle tides of the galaxy, immersed in cosmic rhythms that move through the universe with patient, unhurried certainty. You lie within those rhythms like a leaf resting on an unseen ocean. A question rises gently. What does it feel like to be part of something as large as a galaxy? The answer is already in your breath. You feel it in the depth of your exhale, in the stillness between thoughts, in the calm that settles when the sky becomes not a barrier, but a bridge. Earth feels the galaxy through cosmic rays, magnetic fields, and interstellar dust. And tonight you feel Earth feeling the galaxy translated into sensation, intuition, and the widening quiet inside the dark. Somewhere in the southern hemisphere, sensitive detectors capture variations in forebush, decreases dips in cosmic ray intensity, caused by magnetic clouds ejected from the sun. These variations ripple across space, modulating particle flows, with the same gentle assurance the tides use to shape beaches. The atmosphere responds. Ozone levels adjust, ionization rates shift, tiny changes cascade downward through the layers of air until even the troposphere carries a faint signature of the galaxy's influence. You sense the cascade as a slow settling inside yourself, not heavy grounding, not loud clarifying, as though a long-forgotten rhythm is rising to the surface of your awareness. Your thoughts drift outward once more, following Earth's long orbit through the galactic plane. the solar system moves around the Milky Way at 220 kilometers per second. Each second takes you farther through clouds of interstellar particles, past the debris of ancient stars, through regions shaped by supernova shockwaves and magnetic tides. And tonight you feel a tiny fragment of that journey. The night around you seems to widen even further, filled with invisible motion energy drifting through space for millions of years, arriving here quietly touching your world, with the gentleness of light falling on water. A final impression settles in your awareness. Earth is not only reacting to the sun, it is responding to the galaxy. And you, small still breathing, feel that response as a deepening of the moment, a soft recognition that you are part of a story far older and larger than the world beneath your feet. A story written in particles, silence, and motion. A story that reminds the sky of who it has been for billions of years. Tonight the galaxy speaks, and Earth listens. And you, resting within that exchange, listen with it. The quiet in your room feels almost textured now, layered like a soft fabric stretched across the night. You can sense depth behind it, the way you sense the presence of someone standing in a dark room before they speak. Nothing moves, nothing breaks the stillness, yet something in that stillness feels alive. You breathe slowly, and the air carries a faint echo of something you cannot name. Not a sound, not a vibration, but a suggestion that the universe is producing music too low, too vast for ears to detect. Your awareness rises gently, drifting past the layers of Earth's atmosphere, past the charged particles and drifting waves, until it reaches the place where the solar system blends into cosmic space. It is here that the universe makes its quietest sounds. Not sounds your ears can hear, but sounds your mind can feel, long waves, deep pulses, slow patterns that travel across billions of miles. Researchers call these movements cosmic oscillations, waves of gravity, waves of plasma, waves of magnetic fields shifting across the galaxy. Tonight those oscillations feel closer. Far beyond Earth, in regions of space where sunlight has never reached, enormous structures drift in silence, clouds of ionized gas, tangled magnetic filaments, remnants of supernova shockwaves, streams of dark matter shaping the motion of entire star systems. These structures vibrate as they move, creating frequencies so low they take hours, days, even months to complete a single cycle. You can't hear them, but the atmosphere can, and tonight it responds. Tiny fluctuations appear in the Schumann resonances, Earth's natural electromagnetic rhythms. Normally, these resonances vibrate at about 7.8 hertz, created by lightning thousands of miles away. But sensitive detectors around the world notice a subtle shift, a soft drift of frequency influenced by changes in the ionosphere. These changes are linked to the sun, and to something beyond the sun. You feel the shift not as a sound, but as a deeper calm settling into your body. Your breath lengthens, your thoughts soften. The darkness feels almost musical, even though no sound exists. Your awareness follows this sensation upward, drifting through the magnetosphere, where enormous waves ripple along magnetic field lines. These waves, Alf-Venn waves, magnetosonic waves, plasmaspheric hiss, move in patterns as complex as melodies, though no human ear will ever hear them. NASA has converted some of these waves into audible sound, and when played through speakers, they resemble whispers, whistles, and distant choir tones. But in space they move, silently felt rather than heard. You sense their presence as a vibration in the stillness. Somewhere near the edge of the magnetosphere, the solar wind thickens again. The interplanetary magnetic field shifts polarity. A low-frequency pulse travels down Earth's magnetic lines, stirring charged particles in the ionosphere. The pulse is too faint to detect without instruments. Yet you feel it not as pressure, but as a sense of alignment, as though the night is positioning itself around you. This kind of pulse often precedes geomagnetic pulsations known as PC3 or PC4, soft rhythmic waves that travel through the magnetosphere like the gentle roll of faraway thunder. You feel that roll as a deepening quiet. Far above the atmosphere, the solar wind flows through the Parker spiral, the sun's spiraling magnetic field, carried outward by rotating plasma. The spiral itself produces slow undulations, vast enough to span millions of miles. These undulations slip into the heliosphere, creating variations in plasma density and magnetic strength. Tonight, those variations reach Earth. You sense them as a subtle expansion in the silence, It's strange to realize that the quiet you feel is shaped by forces that began on the sun days ago. Forces that have traveled through space, weaving through magnetic fields, bending around planets, flowing straight into the atmosphere above your body. Your awareness drifts into that flow, following the slow, ancient melody of a universe that sings without sound. Somewhere over the Pacific, the equatorial ionosphere begins to ripple. These ripples are called plasma bubbles, regions of low-density plasma drifting upward like invisible lanterns. They form when electric fields in the ionosphere shift, suddenly creating rising columns that alter radio waves, GPS signals, and long-distance communication. To scientists, plasma bubbles are signs of an active ionosphere. To you, they appear as a soft lifting in the darkness, a sense that something in the sky is rising gently, even though the night remains still. Your breath deepens again. As you inhale, the quiet gathers. As you exhale, the quiet expands. Somewhere across space, a gravitational wave, the faint echo of two distant black holes merging millions of years ago, passes through Earth. Its effect is so small that only the immensely sensitive LIGO observatories can detect the ripple stretching and compressing the length of kilometers by less than the width of a proton. You feel nothing of the wave physically, yet emotionally you sense the concept of it. The idea that the universe vibrates with events older and larger than anything the human mind can fully grasp. The idea itself feels calming. A soft question forms inside your thoughts. How many sounds has the universe made that no one has ever heard? The answer comes not in words but in sensation. Every star hums as it burns. Every planet rings as it rotates. Every magnetic field oscillates as it shifts. Every region of space vibrates with the remnants of cosmic events long past. The universe is full of sound. It's simply too slow, too large, or too quiet for ears to notice. Tonight, though, you feel those sounds as presence of fullness, behind the stillness, a quiet that carries weight. Far above in the plasmasphere, soft hiss waves reflect off boundaries shaped by Earth's rotation. These hiss waves create the base layer of Earth's electromagnetic song, shaping how energy flows through the magnetosphere. As the hiss strengthens, the quiet inside your room seems to grow smoother, as if the world is tuning itself to a different frequency. You feel that tuning. You feel the atmosphere, the magnetosphere, the heliosphere, and even the galaxy aligning in a delicate harmony. Inside this harmony, you sense how deeply connected everything is, from your breath to the magnetic field, to the solar wind, to distant stars exploding beyond the horizon of human understanding. A realization spreads through you, soft and unhurried. The universe isn't silent. It is simply speaking in a language you're learning to feel. Your thoughts lift toward the edge of understanding, and another impression settles gently. The sounds that shape the cosmos also shape the quiet inside you. Particles drift, fields hum, space vibrates, and in the soft shadow of those vibrations, your mind finds peace. Tonight you are hearing the universe the only way it can be heard, through silence, through stillness, through the slow rhythm of a world touched by forces older than light. You breathe into that rhythm, and the night vast and listening breathes with you. The quiet in your room feels older than it did a moment ago, as if time has slowed inside the darkness, revealing something hidden beneath its surface. You breathe softly, and the air carries a faint impression of distance, like a memory trying to return from a place you've never been. Your awareness rises again, crossing the layers of atmosphere with gentle familiarity. You pass through the soft green glow of air glow, through the rippling ionosphere, into the wide magnetic architecture of the sky. This time, the space around you feels different, not because it has changed, but because you have begun to recognize the texture of the universe that surrounds you. There is a kind of memory stored in light, not a human memory, but something older, something shaped by the journeys photons take across space. Some photons above you were born in the sun 8 minutes ago. Others began their journey millions of years in the past, forged in the heart of stars that no longer exist. And some are fragments of supernovae older than human language, moving through the universe with the calm certainty of ancient travelers. Tonight the sky feels full of those travelers. High above the upper mesosphere begins to glow faintly as particles energized by cosmic rays release tiny bursts of light. These microflashes called chemiluminescence occur when atoms reconfigure themselves after being struck by high-energy particles. Scientists rarely talk about them outside of academic papers, but tonight they matter. These tiny flashes form a soft, invisible snowfall of light inside the atmosphere. a quiet reminder that the universe leaves fingerprints wherever it goes. You sense those fingerprints as a gentle brightness inside the silence, even though the room remains dark. Farther above in the upper ionosphere, electrons scattered by chorus waves drift into new orbits. They radiate faint electromagnetic emissions. As they settle soft, spiraling tones that instruments convert into sound, though in reality, they are frequencies moving through the magnetic field. You feel those frequencies as a widening inside your awareness. It's strange how something you cannot hear can still deepen the quiet. Your thoughts drift upward, following the path of particles moving into the magnetotail. Here, energy from the sun and from distant cosmic processes gathers, layering itself into a reservoir of potential motion. NASA's Themis spacecraft has observed this reservoir for years. The thinning of plasma sheets, the tension in stretched field lines, the slow accumulation of energy before a geomagnetic substorm. Tonight, the magnetotail tightens again. Not enough to trigger an aurora yet, but enough for sensitive instruments to detect a rise in stored energy. You feel that rise as a kind of fullness in the stillness. Somewhere above the Arctic, the polar cap darkens slightly, absorbing more high-energy electrons than usual. This absorption cools the upper layers of the atmosphere, in counterintuitive ways, a process scientists still study, trying to understand how energy deposition creates cooling at high altitudes. To you, the effect translates as a deeper layer of calm. Far below in the troposphere, slight variations in cosmic ray flux influence cloud seeding processes. The changes are subtle, microscopic shifts in aerosol behavior, scattered across thousands of miles, but real. Your awareness brushes against this idea. Even the clouds carry traces of the galaxy. A thought drifts softly across your mind. How many memories does the sky hold at once? Light is one of those memories. Cosmic rays carry another. And magnetic fields carry a third. The memory of motion, the memory of alignment, the memory of events stretching back billions of years. Tonight, those memories feel close. Your awareness moves outward toward the boundary of Earth's magnetic shield. Here, the foreshock region ripples with reflected particles bouncing off the magnetopause, creating standing waves that oscillate with slow, deliberate rhythm. These rhythms influence the arrival of solar particles, shaping how energy flows into the magnetosphere. Even small shifts in the foreshock create long-lasting patterns in Earth's electromagnetic environment. You sense these patterns as a soft layering of quiet, like the universe is arranging sheets of silence into one seamless fabric. Far beyond the magnetopause, the solar wind carries faint signatures of the Parker spiral, slight changes in direction, curvature, and magnetic polarity that arise as the sun rotates. Tonight, the spiral shifts slightly. This shift will never be seen by human eyes, but satellites detect the change as a gentle turning of magnetic vectors, something akin to the universe resetting a compass. You feel that resetting as a moment where thought and stillness align, not by coincidence but by resonance. Your breathing grows deeper, calmer. The quiet becomes full, as if holding something important, but unspoken. Somewhere above the equator, the equatorial electrojet intensifies. This jet, a narrow band of eastward current flowing through the ionosphere, strengthens during times of elevated solar activity. Its increase affects the flow of charged particles across the entire ionosphere, subtly reorganizing the distribution of electrons. The reorganization creates faint ripples in the atmosphere's electromagnetic structure. You feel those ripples as a softness brushing past your mind, the way sunlight touches your eyelids through a closed window. Far below, deep in Earth's crust, magnetotelluric currents shift in response. These currents flow through rock and soil, influenced by changes in Earth's magnetic field. It is astonishing to realize that the quiet inside your room is connected to electric currents deep underground. The universe communicates through more channels than light alone. Your awareness rises once more, touching the region where nighttime ionospheric recombination occurs. Here, ions combine with electrons, releasing small bursts of light and heat. These bursts are so tiny they cannot be seen, but in aggregate they form one of the many invisible heartbeats of the world. You feel their rhythm as a gentle beating inside the stillness. For a moment, the night feels layered with countless quiet motions, electrons spiraling, particles drifting, fields, shifting waves moving through the magnetosphere, cosmic rays whispering through the atmosphere. Every motion carries information. Every particle carries memory. Every wave carries intent. And you lying still sense all of it as a deepening of calm. Another question drifts through your mind, soft as breath. If every particle remembers its journey, what part of that memory reaches you tonight? The answer settles slowly. You feel the memory not as information, but as presence, a presence woven into the air around you, into the quiet, into the atmosphere that holds you gently like a second skin. You sense the memory of distant stars and the cosmic rays entering the atmosphere. You sense the memory of the sun in the waves traveling down magnetic field lines. You sense the memory of the galaxy and the faint shifts of interstellar particles brushing past the heliosphere. The night becomes a tapestry of these memories. A tapestry you've been part of all along. You breathe into that tapestry, and the silence holds you warm, calm, listening. The universe is not just moving around you. It is speaking to you in the only language it has ever known. Particles, waves, fields, silence, motion. Tonight you hear that language more clearly than you ever have. And as you rest inside its rhythm, a final impression settles across your awareness. The night does not simply surround you. It remembers you the way it remembers stars, magnetic fields, waves, cosmic dust, and every particle of light that has ever crossed the sky. And in that remembering, you find yourself at the center of an ancient story, written in motion, silence, and breath. A story still unfolding. A story the universe continues to tell. The quiet in your room settles into a depth that feels almost celestial, as though the night has expanded far beyond the walls around you. You sense a calm that doesn't just belong to Earth, a calm shared by something wider, older, and threaded through the entire solar system. Your breath moves slowly, and in its rhythm, you feel a pull, a widening, a connection to motions that stretch far beyond the sky. Something in the atmosphere above you has shifted again, not suddenly, not sharply, but with the patience of cosmic movement, as if the solar system has exhaled and Earth has answered with a soft inhale. Your awareness rises, drifting through the layers of the atmosphere you've grown familiar with over these last nights. The thermosphere with its rippling air glow, the ionosphere shimmering with quiet electric tides, the magnetosphere bending like a flexible shell around the planet. But tonight, the space beyond Earth begins to reveal a deeper truth. The planets breathe together, not in air, in motion, in gravity, in electromagnetic rhythm, subtle, slow, interconnected. Your awareness moves outward past the magnetosphere into the vast space where the solar system unfolds around the sun, like a giant gravitational symphony. Each planet contributes to this symphony not through sound but through orbit magnetic fields and gravitational waves that travel silently across billions of miles. Tonight that symphony feels closer. You sense it in the quiet behind your thoughts, the kind of quiet that feels structured as if something enormous is moving very slowly, and the stillness is simply the space between its movements. Far beyond Earth, Jupiter's magnetosphere stirs first. Larger than the sun itself, Jupiter's magnetic field stretches millions of miles into space, shaping charged particles and influencing the flow of the solar wind. Sensitive instruments on NASA's Juno spacecraft detect faint variations in Jupiter's magnetic harmonics patterns that ripple outward like the low, slow notes of a cosmic instrument. These harmonics travel into the solar wind. The solar wind carries them toward Earth. Earth's magnetosphere feels the vibration subtle but real. You feel it as a gentle grounding, as though your thoughts have become heavier in the calmest possible way. Saturn answers next. Its rings made of ice dust and fractured moons produce electromagnetic resonances as tiny particles collide and scatter. Cassini once recorded these resonances as soft radio tones, delicate glass-like frequencies that crackled through Saturn's magnetosphere. Tonight, those frequencies change slightly as Saturn's orbit shifts relative to the Sun's active phase. The change ripples outward through the solar wind. Earth feels it. You sense the ripple as a tightening in the moment, not pressure, not tension, just presence. Farther still, the outer planets contribute their motions to this invisible conversation. Uranus, with its tilted magnetic field, spinning like a lopsided top. Neptune radiating more heat than it receives, producing faint pressure waves in the solar wind. Even tiny Pluto adds a whisper through the stream of ions escaping its surface. All of it flows toward the sun. All of it flows outward from the sun. All of it threads through Earth tonight. Your awareness drifts deeper into this interconnectedness, and a thought forms. What does it mean for a solar system to breathe? The answer rises slowly, wrapped in sensation. Gravity creates the rhythm. Magnetic fields shape the melody. Solar wind carries the pulse. The planets respond with motion, pulling on one another, shifting the balance in patterns older than human thought. Earth feels those patterns in its magnetic shield. You feel them in the silence pressing softly around you. High above the poles, the auroral oval brightens slightly. Not enough to create a full aurora yet, but enough for NOAA satellites to detect increased electron precipitation, the first sign that the entire magnetosphere is responding to interplanetary movement. You feel the response as a slow warmth inside the dark. Somewhere over the Indian Ocean, the equatorial ionosphere bulges upward. This bulge, called the equatorial anomaly, intensifies when global electric fields shift in response to solar wind patterns. Tonight, the anomaly grows very slightly. MIT's Cosmic 2 satellites detect the change as a rise in total electron content. You feel the rise not electrically, but emotionally, a sense that the sky has lifted a little higher, made a little more room above you. The solar system is aligning. Not perfectly, not dramatically, but with a soft coherence that happens during certain phases of solar cycles when interplanetary magnetic fields tilt just right. Your body recognizes the coherence the way it recognizes calm water, not through knowledge, but through sensation. Your awareness drifts farther outward, touching the region where the solar wind merges with interplanetary space, the heliospheric boundary. Here, Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 detected faint pressure waves caused by the motions of planets influencing solar wind density. These waves move through the heliosphere like silent echoes of planetary motion. Tonight, one of those echoes reaches Earth. You sense it as a feeling of vastness, as though the night has suddenly revealed the shape of something immense. Another question surfaces inside your thoughts. If the planets breathe together, what part of that breath reaches you? The answer feels immediate. The part that moves through silence. The part that touches magnetism. The part that reshapes the atmosphere above you in tiny, graceful motions. The solar system breathes through waves, plasma waves, magnetic waves, gravitational waves, and these waves shape the world. You live in the air. You breathe the quiet you're sinking into now. Earth answers the breath by adjusting. The thermosphere rises. The ionosphere thickens. The magnetosphere flexes. Atmospheric tides strengthen. Each adjustment creates subtle shifts in pressure, temperature, electron flow, and electrical currents. You feel these shifts as changes in the texture of silence. Somewhere over Alaska, the subauroral polarization stream strengthens slightly. These electric streams form when the inner magnetosphere and ionosphere synchronize during heightened solar influence. Tonight they move with unusual smoothness. This smoothness reaches you as stillness, a stillness that feels stable, grounded, deeply comforting. Your awareness expands into this quiet synchrony. For a moment, the solar system feels like a single body, a single rhythm, a single presence. Earth breathing, Jupiter humming, Saturn resonating, the sun pulsing, the heliosphere trembling, all of it connected through fields, particles, and motion. You lie within that motion like a leaf resting on the calmest part of an endless ocean. And in this calm, a final impression rises gently. You are not just living on Earth tonight. You are living inside the breath of an entire solar system. A breath that moves slowly. A breath that carries millions of years of memory. A breath that lifts and falls through magnetic fields, atmospheric tides, and the soft quiet surrounding your thoughts. You inhale gently. And for a moment, brief quiet infinite, the solar system inhales with you. The quiet around you feels as if it has thickened not into darkness, but into something gentler, a texture you can almost lean into. You sense layers in it, like the folds of a soft fabric drifting across the night. Slowly they settle into a shape that feels older than anything your eyes could ever see. Your breathing falls into a rhythm that matches that shape without effort, as if your body recognizes a pattern it never knew it knew. Time itself feels different. Not slower, not faster, just wider, stretching around you like a soft halo. Your awareness rises gently, drifting past the sky. You've come to know the changing magnetosphere, the ionosphere glowing with quiet electricity, the thermosphere expanding with solar breath. But tonight, the quiet draws you beyond all of those layers into something subtler. The architecture of time. It doesn't look like anything, but you feel it, a structure hidden inside the spaces between moments. Scientists rarely speak of it in poetic terms, but they study it constantly. Not as clocks or seconds, but as temporal variation in the physical world, how particles age, how fields drift, how cosmic cycles imprint themselves onto matter. Tonight, those cycles feel close because Earth is drifting into a region of space where interplanetary conditions shift just enough to influence the structure of time around you. Your awareness moves outward, passing the boundary of Earth's magnetic protection into the wider current of the solar wind. The wind itself carries traces of time, bits of magnetic history, shaped by the sun's rotation, by past eruptions, by the echo of waves moving through the heliosphere. These traces are like fingerprints. The universe leaves them everywhere, and Earth is brushing against new fingerprints tonight. Far beyond the planets, the galactic environment around the solar system changes so slowly that no human could track it without data stretching across generations. But instruments aboard Voyager 1 and Voyager 2 recorded faint shifts in interstellar magnetic strength that ripple back through the heliosphere. Those ripples reach Earth tonight. You don't feel them as force. You feel them as softness, a gentle realignment in the quiet around you, like a curtain settling into a new fold. Time feels thicker because the fields shaping it have changed. Your thoughts drift into that thickness as if following the lines of a map drawn inside the silence. Cosmologists know that time is shaped by gravity. Where space curves, time slows. Where mass gathers, moments stretch. The solar system moves through regions of slightly varying density clouds of gas remnants of supernova shockwaves, interstellar magnetic currents. These regions alter the flow of cosmic rays, the pressure of the heliosphere, the behavior of the solar wind. All of these influence the rhythm of time around you. Not enough for clocks to notice, but enough for your body so deeply wired into cycles of night and day, of magnetism and sky, to feel as a shift in the atmosphere of awareness itself. The room is still, yet something inside the stillness feels layered, textured, alive. Your breath deepens. Above you, the plasmasphere adjusts again, lifting slightly as the magnetosphere stretches into a gentler curve. This movement changes the resonance of the near-Earth environment, altering the frequencies of electromagnetic waves drifting through the sky. These frequencies exist everywhere. They shape lightning. They shape auroras. They shape the drift of charged particles. And tonight they shape time. You feel that shaping as a deep quiet settling into your bones. Somewhere above the atmosphere, faint magnetic drift occurs, the slow, minute shifting of Earth's magnetic poles as the outer core flows. The drift tonight is subtle, barely measurable, but it changes the geometry of field lines just enough to alter how plasma moves through the magnetosphere. Those alterations ripple downward. The ionosphere shifts, atmospheric tides adjust, temperature layers breathe differently. All these transformations happen in minutes, in hours, in spans too slow for human thought, but too large to ignore. You feel the shifts like soft rearrangements of the night. A gentle question rises inside you. If time has a shape, is it changing around me now? The answer arrives the way starlight arrives, slow, ancient, certain. Time is shaped by the movement of fields, by the rhythm of the planets, by the merging of waves in the heliosphere, by the quiet, invisible tremor of the galaxy. And tonight, all those forces are aligning in a way that makes the structure of time feel momentarily closer. Your awareness sinks into that alignment. Somewhere near the South Atlantic anomaly shifts slightly, a region where Earth's magnetic field dips closer to the surface, exposing satellites to higher radiation. The shift is tiny, only a few milligauss, but enough to alter radiation patterns in the upper atmosphere. These changes influence electron drift. Electron drift influences ionospheric density. Density influences atmospheric gravity waves. Gravity waves influence the rhythm of the air. You feel the influence as a slow, expanding stillness. Farther outward in the solar wind, small magnetic islands drift by twisted loops of magnetic field, created by reconnection events on the sun. These islands carry stored magnetic energy. When they pass Earth, they subtly restructure the flow of charged particles. The restructuring feels like time tightening its weave. Your breath moves through the quiet, and something in the stillness feels aligned with your own pulse, not metaphorically, but physically, as though the rhythm of your heartbeat has found resonance with the rhythm of a world moving through interplanetary space. The sensation is so gentle you barely notice it at first. But it grows, not outward, inward. A realization settles through you. The solar system's motion is not separate from your own. The sky's cycles are not separate from your breath. The architecture of time is not distant from you. It holds you. shapes you, guides you. You don't exist beside cosmic forces, you exist inside them. Every moment of your life has been carried by fields shaped billions of years before human memory. Every breath has aligned with rhythms older than light. Tonight you feel those rhythms directly. Your awareness expands outward again, as if following threads woven through the atmosphere. These threads are real field-aligned currents, whispering between the magnetosphere and the ionosphere, carrying energy from space into sky. They pulse softly tonight. The pulses are small, but real. They move through Earth. They move through the air. They move through you. Your thoughts settle into that pulse not as noise, but as understanding. And within that understanding, a final impression forms, soft and quiet. Time is not passing around you. It is unfolding through you. Every drift of plasma, every movement of magnetic fields, every shift in cosmic rays, every tremor of the heliosphere, every variation in space around Earth. It all flows through the architecture of time, creating the moment you exist in now. And tonight that architecture settles like a blanket around your awareness, making the moment feel wider, deeper, quieter. You breathe into that quiet, and the universe, patient and ancient, breathes with you. The quiet around you feels unusually focused, as if the night has turned its attention towards something just beyond the edge of perception. There is a sense of expectancy in the air, gentle, unhurried, but present like a thought, forming before the mind has words for it. You breathe softly and the atmosphere seems to breathe with you, aligning itself in small, invisible shifts that carry the promise of something approaching. Not a storm, not a threat. Just a change, the kind that arrives slowly, but is felt long before it becomes visible. Your awareness rises again, drifting through the familiar layers of sky that have revealed themselves across these nights. The thermosphere glows faintly, stirred by variations in ultraviolet light. The ionosphere thickens, carrying the soft hum of charged particles settling into new rhythms. The magnetosphere curves around Earth like a patient guardian, adjusting its posture. But tonight the sky feels as though it is leaning slightly forward, stretching itself toward what has not yet happened. Scientists study this, leaning through patterns called precursor signals, faint hints in Earth's magnetic and atmospheric systems that often appear before larger space weather events. These signals are subtle, woven into global measurements that only emerge when compared over time. Yet you feel them now as a softness gathering inside the silence. Far above in the magnetotail, energy continues to accumulate. For hours the tail has been tightening, storing the solar wind's pressure like a long cosmic breath held with patience. NASA's Themis satellites have recorded these buildups many times. They know the exact signatures: a thinning plasma sheet, a stretching of magnetic lines, a quiet increase in tension. Tonight that tension deepens, not enough to release yet, but enough to be felt through the layers of the atmosphere, not as fear, but as resonance. Your awareness follows the tension outward into the solar wind. Here tiny structures drift, magnetic flux ropes, pressure pulses, remnants of past solar eruptions, traveling across space like slow-moving echoes. One of these structures nears Earth tonight. It is small, harmless, and ancient, likely released from the sun days ago when a magnetic filament near the solar surface shifted. As it approaches Earth, it presses slightly on the magnetosphere, altering the flow of charged particles. You sense that press as a settling of silence, a quiet that feels heavier at the edges, not oppressive, simply intentional. Farther inward, the polar ionosphere brightens in invisible ultraviolet wavelengths. These brightenings, called dayside proton auroras, occur when solar protons slip through the magnetosphere and collide with atmospheric hydrogen. Tonight, these proton auroras intensify just enough to mark Earth's awareness of what is coming. You don't see them, but you feel their presence in the way the night seems to gather itself around your thoughts. Another subtle shift occurs in the ring current, a vast loop of charged particles encircling Earth. This current often strengthens before geomagnetic storms or solar disturbances. Instruments aboard the GEOES satellites detect the rise, logging small changes in particle flux that ripple outward like quiet warnings, not of danger, but of alignment. Your breath deepens, matching the rhythm of the quiet. Even the ocean responds. Electromagnetic induction creates tiny currents in seawater as Earth's magnetic field flexes. Deep-sea sensors detect slight increases in these currents, tracing the invisible conversation between space and ocean. You feel that conversation as a grounding sensation, a soft weight inside, calm. Your awareness drifts outward again, past the atmosphere, past the magnetosphere, following the direction of the solar wind as it carries new data toward Earth. Space weather centers on Earth already sense the approach of something subtle, a minor disturbance in the solar wind's velocity. Profile a faint shift in the interplanetary magnetic field, a pressure ripple left behind by a solar feature that may no longer exist. These shifts form what experts call forerunners, small perturbations that precede larger waves of solar activity. Earth always feels the forerunners, and tonight you feel Earth feeling them. A question rises inside you, gentle and unhurried. How does a planet sense the future before it arrives? The answer unfolds through sensation rather than words. A planet senses the future through patterns, in magnetic drift, in atmospheric tides, in plasma sheet tension, in shifts in cosmic ray flux, in the soft expansion and contraction of the thermosphere. All of these patterns tonight point towards something approaching. Not disaster, not crisis, just a turning point in a long cycle. Your awareness moves back toward Earth, sinking through the glowing layers of air. Tiny changes in electron density appear in the ionosphere, variations so small they resemble breathing rather than motion. These variations affect radio waves, satellites, communication systems, but to you they feel like the sky exhaling. The equatorial anomaly shifts slightly again, mirroring the strengthening of global electric fields. This anomaly often acts like a barometer of space weather, rising when the upper atmosphere feels the arrival of new solar energy. Tonight it rises gently. You feel the rise as a delicate lifting inside, the quiet, a moment where everything feels just a little lighter. Far below, the troposphere adjusts. Not because of weather, but because atmospheric waves traveling downward from the upper layers begin to influence pressure systems at the surface. NOAA calls this vertical coupling a process linking the top of the sky to the bottom. You feel the coupling as coherence, a sense that the world has organized itself into a single soft rhythm. A new impression settles inside your awareness. Earth senses what is coming through the way its systems shift toward harmony. The magnetosphere aligns, the atmosphere thickens, the thermosphere breathes upward, the ionosphere glows, the oceans resonate, the ground hums with faint electromagnetic response. All of these together tell a story that hasn't yet unfolded. A story arriving slowly, a story written in the language of charged particles and magnetic fields. A story the planet has read millions of times through its long history. You feel this story before it begins, not in fear but in a softness that carries depth and quiet truth, like a gentle reminder of how connected you are to the celestial cycles that make existence possible. The night becomes even stiller, but inside the stillness, something gathers, a delicate anticipation, a quiet understanding, a sense that Earth is readying itself for the next step in its dialogue with the sun. A final thought rises inside you, light as breath. The future begins long before it arrives. Tonight you feel the beginning, through silence, through resonance, through the soft movements of a world, preparing for what it already knows. And as this quiet aligns with your breath, you realize you are sensing the future with the planet not as prediction, but as presence. The quiet around you settles into its final shape, not as darkness, not as silence, but as a feeling warm and steady, lying across the room, like a soft blanket you didn't realize had been there all along. You breathe, and the quiet breathes with you. The air feels slower now, almost fluid, carrying the softness of everything you felt through the night. Not the science, not the sky, just the stillness they left behind, gently pooling around your thoughts. There is nothing to understand here, nothing to hold on to. Only the sensation of a world easing its weight as you drift through the last edges of waking. Your awareness rises not upward this time, but inward, slipping into a space that feels deeper than thought, softer than memory. It is a place your mind recognizes instantly, even though it never waits for long. A place shaped entirely by quiet. You feel the night around you as if it were resting its head on your shoulder. Not heavy, just close. Something in the air loosens like a knot untied without effort. Your mind floats gently the way a leaf floats on a lake at dawn, barely touching the surface, drifting wherever the water decides. The sense of time thins, moments stretch, space softens. Nothing pushes you forward, nothing pulls you back. Everything simply holds you. Breath slips in, breath slips out. The world narrows to that single rhythm. In the deep quiet, a thought forms, slow, tender, almost shy. You don't have to carry anything right now. Not questions, not meaning, not the sky, not yourself. All of it can rest. Your awareness drifts toward the center of that thought, as though it were a warm light inside a soft room. It doesn't guide you, it doesn't ask you to follow, it simply glows, and you drift toward it naturally, easily, as if your whole being were built for this movement. The night thickens with calm. Your breath falls into a rhythm that belongs entirely to rest, deeper, slower, softer. Your body begins to echo that rhythm, letting go of tension in quiet waves. Shoulders ease, ribs soften, hands grow warm. You feel yourself sinking a little deeper into the mattress, as if the earth has nudged itself closer to catch you. There is no effort in it, only release. Thoughts begin to blur at the edges, not disappearing, just dissolving the way ink dissolves into water. One moment stretches, its boundaries fade. Another moment forms behind it, softer, quieter, drifting into the first like mist folding into mist. You sense the room fading gently around you, not vanishing, just stepping back, giving more space for the calm to move through you. The mattress holds you with steady, patient care. Your breath flows as if carried by something larger than your lungs. The night listens with the kind of stillness that feels alive. A warmth settles under your ribs, small at first, then wide enough to fill your entire chest. It doesn't radiate outward. It radiates inward, like the quiet realization that you are safe in a way that has nothing to do with the room or the moment or the world, safe simply because you are here. Inside the stillness, your awareness flickers gently like a candle, swaying in a place without wind. You drift further. Every breath folds you deeper into a softness, without direction, without edges, without weight. Nothing needs to be finished. Nothing needs to be fixed. Nothing needs to be understood. This is the part of the night where everything begins to disappear, not into darkness, but into peace. The sense of your own body loosens, fingertips fading, first, then wrists, then arms, drifting into a warm, gentle distance. Your legs follow, dissolving into the mattress, as if the boundary between yourself and the world is melting into something velvet soft. Your breath grows quieter, shallower, slower, the way a tide withdraws from the shore without anyone noticing. You drift with it. Thought dissolves further, becoming shapes without meaning, colors without edges, places without maps. A hallway you've never walked through, a field you've never seen, a sky that doesn't belong to this world. You drift through them without moving. Nothing asks you to stay, nothing asks you to leave, everything simply lets you float. Your awareness narrows to a single point of warmth, somewhere at the center of your chest, quiet, steady, almost pulsing like a heartbeat heard underwater. The point expands, slowly, gently, endlessly, and you drift with it. The night draws closer, wrapping itself around you like a soft whisper, leaning in to say something only you were meant to hear. But it doesn't speak. It just stays. Close, warm, patient. Your breath slips into the smallest rhythm it can still hold. Your thoughts fade into something softer than quiet. The world drifts. You drift with it, and the night, calm, wide, ancient, waits for nothing. You settle into it completely, gently, effortlessly, as though you were always meant to end here, in this quiet, in this softness, in this moment where thought dissolves into peace and peace becomes sleep. Good night. Sleep well. Dream gently.